I've been waiting for this.
How's it going, everybody? Welcome to another TVFGC interview. And today we are joined by Hitbox Cameron, or you can just call him by his real name, Cameron.
Yeah.
So, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I've been watching your guys' content quite a bit, and I'm really looking forward to this interview and see what you guys have going for this.
Oh, okay. Well, we appreciate the support. It's as you would know. It's a grind with this content stuff.
It is, yeah.
Especially with FGC stuff. It's not the type of stuff you could just put up and everybody jumps to. It just becomes viral. So
Yeah.
It's definitely work. So, but
Yeah,
go
you
ahead.
guys are doing it too. You guys are putting in the work. If the moment you guys get any sort of momentum, it's gonna be awesome.
Yeah, we appreciate it. So once again, we appreciate the support. So we're glad to have you on today to actually become a part of that content.
Yeah.
Help us with that content. So
Yeah.
so we can go ahead and get right into it. So tell us about you, who you are. For the people who don't know you, and about your position at Hitbox, what you do with Hitbox.
Yeah. So I'm Cameron. I'm a Vegas local. Hitbox is from Vegas. Uh, I come from the Smash Brothers community. I was a competitive Smash Bros. Player for a while, and that's how I ended up meeting Dustin and Sean, the owners of Hitbox. What I do at Hitbox is I'm the community manager, but because we're a small team, I'm kind of all over the place. With small groups, with small companies, they say you wear a lot of hats, and so I do a lot of social media. I do, I'm on Photoshop. I'm trying to help with events. I'm helping with marketing. I'm even helping with choices with controllers and stuff like that. I provide input and testing and everything. So I'm all over the place. But my main thing with Hitbox is community management. That's because of my history with the Smash community.
Okay. That's great to hear it coming from the Smash community. That they try to make that difference between FGC and Smash, but
Yeah.
I just believe we all just need to come together. It's the same thing. Smash is a fighting game, so
Yeah.
and with Kazuya coming to it, that just proves it even more.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So, but as you know, if you've seen one of our interviews, we like to get into talking about as well as the general questions, talk about things that people might not know that much about you. So, is it true that you really like Leonardo da Vinci? What is
It is true. I like Leonardo da Vinci. That is pretty great. You got that far. That's awesome.
what is it about
Yeah.
him that you really like? Tell us about your relationship with Leonardo da Vinci.
That is a really good question. So, I back in the day, I had a fascination with the Renaissance period in Europe, and the the figure that I really caught on to was Leonardo da Vinci, and it was because he was not only an artist, but he was an engineer, a scientist in some regard, and he was self-taught, which was really cool to me. But one of the really interesting things for me was uh, he would write in his journals backwards, and it was so people couldn't read his work in his journal, so nobody would copy it. Um, that I thought that was amazing, and really he was a big influence on me because he was self-taught, and he really he put himself in a lot of categories as far as learning or trying to do things, and in the end I found out he was vegetarian, and I was vegetarian at that point. I'm vegan now, and that was just for some odd reason I connected with him, and I just think he's one of the few people I even think about when it comes to history.
That's interesting. It blew my mind as I got older. I didn't realize the Ninja Turtles was named after Leonardo
Yeah.
Raphael. So when I finally got it, I was just like, why didn't when you hit Michelangelo, you should just be like, oh, okay, that's but I
Yeah.
didn't get it period until somebody pointed it out. That's
Yeah.
what that is, right? And I was like, oh, so they're even more legendary now. They're named after the
Yeah.
Ninja Turtles.
Yeah.
So when exactly was it that you started working with Hitbox and getting into actually coming into their business and helping out within the Smash community? And was Smash really was them seeing the work you doing in the Smash community specifically why they chose you?
Yeah, so I'll I'll put a little bit of history onto this too, because I did compete in Smash Brothers, specifically Melee, for quite a while, and I ran tournaments for about 6 years here in Vegas, and at a tournament I wasn't running, oddly enough, was I met Dustin, one of the co-owners of Hitbox, and it was through a friend. I met him, and he showed up to a Melee tournament, never seen this person. And one of the things I like to do at tournaments is talk to new people. And so it was a friend of a friend, so I was like, oh, this is gonna be easy conversation. I find out he's the co-owner of Hitbox, and I'm like, okay, what is the co-owner of Hitbox doing at a Melee local trying to learn Melee? So he and I sit down, we play a little bit, but we talked the whole tournament, and that was like sort of my end to that group of people, the Hitbox guys. Eventually, over time, I got to become good friends with him and Sean. They're brothers. They both own Hitbox, and eventually, I learned about the Smashbox, and that was, you know, it was very interesting to see. I'll say to start off right there, but I was one of the few people that was asked to sort of test out the Smashbox, and then I had some experience with that, and then going into I think it was Evo 2018, because I had that experience playing on a Smashbox, I was asked to help out with their booth, and I was only asked to do I think 4 total hours over the 3-day weekend, and I ended up being there for probably 16 hours because I enjoyed it so much. And I love talking to all the people and teaching them Smashbox stuff and learning about other Hitbox stuff, because I'd never played on a Hitbox at that point. And it was after that event, 2 weeks later, they asked me to go out to breakfast with them for a meeting, and I was like, "What is this all about?" And they said, "Hey, do you want to join Hitbox as our basically our Smash or Smashbox representative?" And yeah, and they cited the fact that I've been in the community for quite a while. I've been to quite a few majors, so I know people from around the world. I've ran tournaments. I've had to deal with the community because in Vegas, but in any community where you're running tournaments, you're also acting as a community manager in some regard.
Yeah.
Because you have to sort of direct everybody on information or where to go and everything. And with all of that, I was brought in to basically talk to tournament organizers and get events going for us, and that's where it all started.
Okay. That's crazy. It all happened on like a chance meeting at a Melee event, but that's usually how things happen. You have to put yourselves out there and be at the right place, right time. It just works out like that. You can have like a lot of all the knowledge you want to, but a lot of times it's just relationships and being at the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
So, but how was like first seeing the controllers? So I made a video. I'm pretty sure you saw it like when we did the little interview mini doc thing when I was questioning people about Hitbox, because that was my first time really ever seeing a controller like that, you know. But then seeing the Smashbox, I was like, okay, that looked like it's just taken to a whole nother level. What was your first interactions with Smashbox, and how was it like received within the scene when you guys were first seeing it?
Yeah, so I had seen a Hitbox before because I lived in Vegas prior for about a year before I moved back, and I thought it made sense to me. I was like, yeah, digital buttons, keyboard, all that stuff. But same sort of experience when I saw Smashbox was, what the heck's going on here? Like, theoretically, my mind was like, okay, you take a Hitbox, you do the same thing with Smash, that makes sense. But why are there so many buttons? And it was for somebody who plays Melee specifically, you kind of get to that answer quicker because you realize how many different angles you need to hit in that in that game. And once, Dustin explained to me, like, some of those buttons were, modifiers to be able to hit specific angles on your analog stick, because you only have 4 analog buttons. That's only 8 total directions that you can hit, so you need to be able to hit, more directions. Once I understood that, I was basically sold on the idea. And for me, I had broken my wrist in high school playing baseball, and as you may know, Melee is not very good for the hands, especially on the GameCube controller. So after some time, I just had a really difficult time playing Melee. I had changed my grip so many times to sort of adjust and mitigate any of the pain, and eventually I played Jigglypuff in the end, because that was the character with the least amount of inputs I can do, and I was just focused on running tournaments. But once the Smashbox came and I was able to learn it, I switched to it as soon as I possibly could, because I didn't have any pain in my wrist playing it. That's when, for me, that was what really sold it as an idea, and that's how I presented it to people. This is really early on. This is before it was even like really publicly announced. But when it was publicly announced, the sort of reception of the community is Vegas in general, I think, is sort of I don't want to say like more open-minded or anything, but there's a lot of aspects to the Vegas fighting game and Smash communities. Probably because of Hitbox, we're more accepting of this new stuff that comes in. So, as an example, there's so many more Hitbox players here in Vegas than anywhere else. It makes sense. We're based in Vegas. But on top of that, the Smash community here for Melee, we've been playing on monitors since I think 2014, and I don't think any other community in the world is doing that as far as Melee goes. They haven't done it for that long, at least. We most play on the old CRTs, the big 50-pound television. So here in Vegas, it was actually, the Smashbox itself was sort of well accepted right away. It was well understood, hey, this is better for your hands. It's, it's better for precision, all that. But the wider Melee community, the global Melee community, was not so keen to it. They were they didn't like it, is the best way to put it. And they were very vocal about it, and that's what's sort of difficult to I don't think a lot of fighting game players understand. Maybe they do now, but back then, Smash was way more on Twitter than fighting games were, and were pretty loud and everything. And it was just hula baloo. It was just all over the place. Everybody talking, having their own opinions on the thing, and it's broken. It's a pay to win device. That sort of stuff.
Yeah, I know when I first saw Smashbox, I kind of thought the same thing of just like, that is a lot of things to press, and I'm just like, how do you do it all, But like I said in the video, I was like, I'm just not gonna be ignorant and just be like, man, like that's crazy. Who's ever doing that, And I mean, I can imagine, like, when you bring anything new and it's kind of polarizing, like Hitbox or Smashbox could be, with the way that they're trying to go. Like, that's understandable that people, it happens. People are people. We know people are people. So it's kind of something that you probably expect. But I mean, it seems like there's more now that you see of people like actually supporting and things like that than you see people kind of really like, I still don't know.
Yeah.
So, staying in that Smash vein, like, is it true that you first got into Smash because a friend of yours bought it on 64? And the way you got into competitive Smash was like a Nintendo Power magazine?
Yes, and that is really good. Okay, I know what all these people with Nardwar feel. Yeah, when was this? This was my best friend from 3rd to 5th grade. He had a Nintendo 64 and he had Smash Brothers, and we weren't next door neighbors, but we were neighbors. And one day after school, I walked over to his house, and he had this game that had Pikachu in it. And I was like, "Oh, cool! You could use Pikachu and you could fight people. I'll play this game." And it literally took one match. I remember this. It took one match, and I fell in love with it. And ever since then, Smash Brothers has been my main game that I've played. Even when I wasn't competitive, that was my favorite game. But yeah, and then so yeah, I got into Smash Brothers with that. I saved up money, got a 64, got Smash 64, and then basically the news of Melee was coming out, and I wasn't that old at the time, so I didn't have even more money for that. But I asked for a GameCube for Christmas and Melee, and we got it, and we didn't have a memory card, so we kept the GameCube on all night so we can get Mewtwo, and we just kept the TV off, me and my brother. Yeah, and that was so awesome. But yeah, eventually that's 2001. I played that game so much, and it wasn't until I took a trip with my dad to Colorado to see family. It's incredible I could remember all of this. And we were walking through, I think, a Walmart, and I saw Nintendo Power, and I grabbed it because I believe it had Shadow the Hedgehog on it. I might still actually have this Nintendo Power somewhere in my collectibles and stuff. And I was just sort of scanning through it, and I saw that there was an article about competitive Smash Brothers, and I'm like, oh my gosh, there's competitive Smash Brothers? This is so cool. I need to get back into Smash. And it had, I don't know if you're aware, but like, MLG, they talked about MLG, Melee, they talked about Ken. I believe they even talked about PC Chris, some like legendary players from back then. Actually, I don't know if they brought up PC Chris, but they had a URL in there. I believe it was smashworldforums.com. And where I was growing up, I'm from northern Idaho, and we were from a really small town, and internet wasn't a thing that people really did up there. And so we had dial-up, and I got onto Smash World forums. I had no idea how forums worked. I created an account under the name Kate, C-A-K-E, because that's the name I used in Melee. I couldn't spell my name; it's only 4 letters long, Cameron. So what starts with C-A? Oh, okay, does. And I did not know how to use the forums forever. The first tournament I could find on there was in Portland, which was about a 9-hour drive from where I live. And I asked my mom, "Hey, can I go to this event?" And she's like, "No, you have baseball. You're not going to a stupid video game tournament 10 hours away, And so I didn't really think much. What I learned from that was that there were videos out there, and YouTube was just becoming a thing around this time, and a lot of the older MLG videos were being put on YouTube. So one of the first things I did was I watched these videos. I think the first video I ever watched was Ken and Azen, and I don't know what match this was. It blew me away. They were moving so fast. And I found a couple of friends that were really interested in Smash, and we played a lot of Melee together. And eventually, yeah, that's the beginning. That's where it all started. Man, I really want to know how you found that.
Man, it's amazing to hear those stories, man, because a lot of people nowadays, I have to realize how young people are in the FGC now. I have to remember that people aren't my age, A lot of times, you're so used to growing up and everybody's older than you. And then you realize you're starting to get into that age, like, especially when you move to a different city, you speak to people, and it's like 18-year-olds, managers of stores, and so you're just like, you don't remember, when you had to, like, leave a PlayStation on when you didn't have a memory card? Yeah. And they're like, no, like, you just save it, don't it? Like, So, it's amazing to hear those stories. I'm actually glad you could remember that, so, that was pretty dope.
Yeah, no, that is ingrained in my memory. And I remember there's they had like what did they have? They had a couple of people. Bill Trinan, he's still popular when it comes to Nintendo now. He was one of the people interviewed for that article in Nintendo Power, and there was like they had like a little argument section between two people on if you should use C stick or not, because C stick allows you to do smash attacks and aerial attacks really easily. Um, and I was one of those purists who didn't use a C stick because I thought it was cheating back in the day, which is very very ironic considering the fact that I'm a Smashbox player now, and people would consider that cheating.
Yeah, yeah. I guess I can stick in that little vein right there. So a lot of people find it cheating. So what would you say the overall goal with Hitbox is with making these controllers? Do you think they just want to make gaming easier, more accessible? Because when we was doing the interview, a lot of times we found that people were just using it because of hand issues. The pain of just like messing with controllers, fight sticks, and stuff like that. But what's the true intention uh, of making these controllers that Hitbox had? What's you guys' vision for these controllers?
That when you say vision, that's a much larger question, right? That's huge. To sort of get to that, I'll do some little bit of history here. Dustin and Sean were PC players back in the day. They played StarCraft, they played CS 1.6, stuff like that. Then they learned about fighting games, and they really liked Marvel 2. And Marvel 3 was announced, and they wanted to get ready for that. So they started training in Marvel 2, but they realized they didn't like their stick. So they're like, let's make a better one, or let's mod our stick so it feels better, or something like that. They open up the controller, and they figure out how it works, but eventually they realize that the stick is just digital buttons being pressed, and they didn't. I don't think they made the connection right away, but pretty quickly they're like, hey, let's do buttons, because that's just makes sense. Why would you use this device that you have to move all the way across when you can just hit the direction itself? So the initial start of it all was intended to get accurate inputs, to be precise. As you might know, when you're starting out, it's very difficult to do motion sometimes and not hit jump, right? You're trying to do Hadoken and you jump forward, right? That's the issue Dustin and Sean were getting into, and part of it obviously is the four-way gate. The four-way gate is kind of a weird thing that the FGC has gotten used to. If it's, I don't know if they run into that same issue if they had an eight-way gate on their stick, but yeah, that's where it started, and over time, obviously they realized, but I'm gonna say we too, like ergonomics was a huge thing after a while. I wouldn't say it's like the main focus, but it's like I wasn't part of the initial designs of Smashbox or Hitbox, but talking about cross up with the guys and talking about how we want to approach improvements to the controller. A lot of it is, okay, does this feel good on the hands without sort of completely changing the whole product, right? Because there's things out there like the Ergo Box, for example, that instead of a flat all button thing, it's kind of curved like this and you play like that. It's sort of the in between of a hitbox and a pad, which is in some regards like a more ergonomic sort of design. But we're still trying to aim for that arcade controller feel, and that's the big thing. But the vision in the end is precision, to be more precise. And quite frankly, when you design something that is supposed to be more precise and accurate, it kind of lends itself to be more accessible, to be more ergonomic. We've talked to the Can I Play That people, and they've reviewed a couple of our controllers, and that's been a key thing is if you focus on precision, it just seems like there's accessibility to it. Um, as far as the grand vision, there's a lot of things we want to do with the controllers, um, and as far as my side concerns with community management and everything, I'm always looking for ways to sort of do things with community or with Hitbox. In general, that is what Hitbox did to the stick. There's so many things that we can innovate. Like you were saying with interviewing, in the FGC space, it's different right now. You can basically do interviews and sort of have a platform right away. But in general, interviewing, you have to stand out. You have to have some sort of innovation. We're always looking to do that, and that's how we want to stand out. It would be silly of us to basically compete with Razer and try to make the same exact things they do. We could if we wanted to get huge investors and everything, but we really wanted to keep this as close to the chest as possible and keep it as grounded to the communities as possible. So the vision is a long sort of a large idea, but it starts with precision and I guess in the end empowering players, right? And the way we see it is a lot of times maybe these companies are just trying to make money, which there's no problem in trying to make money, but they don't sort of, because of that, they're limited by what they think about when it comes to what the players might actually need or want. That's the vision.
Yeah, one thing I like that you said when you were basically talking about, keeping it close to the chest, and that's one thing when you also in connection when you said that a lot of people when they kind of do it for money, they really don't think too much of the community aspect. And at the end of the day, businesses are here to serve people,
Yeah.
And if you want to serve your particular community, it's a great idea to keep it like close to the chest, because if it stays originally with the people who made it, then it always like stays true to what it originally intended to do. So,
Yeah.
And also I think when it comes to Hitbox, just always saying like people don't like what they don't understand, and I feel like if people actually, because I feel like a lot of people was kind of doing what I was trying to do originally. You just see it, it's like that obviously looked like it's some type of cheating modded, mess, and then they just kind of go off and just like, oh, I don't like Hitbox, and they'll just come up with reasons for something they didn't even research. So,
to go off that a little bit, I think Hitbox is the future, right? The company itself, yes, but the controller specifically too, Hitbox, Smashbox, Crossup, it's the future because it's precise, because it's accurate, but I want to state that just because it's maybe an improved version of what we are used to, it's not doing things for you, and I want to make sure I state that clearly, is like, we never want our controllers to do things for you. We want you have to input the inputs, right? Especially when it comes to competitive gaming. And I just want to make that clear because, some people will look at it and like, oh, it just, it makes everything so easy. You can change how a button layout works and it will make it easy. Do we ban certain button layouts or binds in-game fighting because it makes it easier? That's what I'm gonna say there.
Yeah, I mean every field that everyone's in now, it's evolved from what it once was. I really like photography, and with digital and mirrorless DSLRs and mirrorless cameras now, they've made it to where it's easier and more accessible to be a photographer. But I'm pretty sure there are some people who will say like, oh man, if you're not, using the older cameras where you gotta put your face underneath the cover and hit a button and all the black powder comes out, there's probably some people who just be like, oh man, I don't mess with those new things. And it's like, okay, if you want to stay like that, that's okay, but that doesn't mean what we're doing over here is anything wrong with that. So but so I'll get into two personal questions for you. So is it true that you really enjoy tennis?
I love tennis. I love playing it. I don't watch it very much anymore. I have a good friend Daniel here in Vegas that him and I would. He he visited Japan and he got the headband from Afro Samurai. And every time we play each other, whoever wins gets to keep the #1 headband. But we haven't played very much recently. I had a knee injury in 2018. Yeah, 2018 from running a 5K. So I haven't been able to really play as much tennis. But yeah, I think tennis is like as close to a fighting game equivalent in traditional sports as you can possibly get.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there's is it really you kind of have like 50-50s, and you have baits and footsies as far as how it relates to tennis. And I mean, I haven't thought about that in a while, so I can't really articulate it very well, but you have ways where you know let's say you've been going for a low the past 3 times on you're jumping, and then your 4th time you do a grab. Same thing happens in tennis. You can be doing cross court 3 times in a row, and then you make it look like you're doing cross court again, but you go straight ahead. And if your footwork is not ready and you're trying to make that guess way ahead of time, you're just screwed.
I don't know if people in the tennis community finds this as an insult, but I kind of understand what you're talking about because I really love ping pong. So
I love ping pong too.
Ping pong is something like anytime, any place, I'm ready to get on the table with somebody trying to play. So, but also another question I have: you said that you were vegan, like Meatless Mondays. Like, was that something that, like, what type of meals did you guys and stuff make? Like, was that something that was hard to transition doing those Meatless Mondays when you tried to first start?
Oh man, that was it honestly wasn't that hard. I was working at a deli, funnily enough, there. But I had access to like deals at the grocery store and stuff. So what I would do is I would go to the health food section at that time, and I would find just vegan or vegetarian things, and that would be the focus. It was pretty easy for me to sort of do those Meatless Mondays because I love rice and I love beans. So if I didn't know anything, that's what I would do, and I would have a salad or something that day. Or I usually ate cereal anyways, and cereal doesn't have any of that stuff. So it was. I know it sounds bizarre, but it was pretty easy at the very beginning, especially the Meatless Mondays. I think there was a lot of potatoes, a lot of beans, a lot of rice. Yeah.
Was that around the time when you figured out how to make like peanut butter and hot sauce sandwiches, or peanut butter and banana with Cheerio sandwiches and stuff like that? Was that where you figured? Is that where you came up with those concoctions?
Okay, so you're on my Facebook. That's what's going on. Peanut butter and hot sauce. When did that start? That was when I came back. I think that was when I came back to Vegas. I don't know where I came up with that idea, but one day I was thinking, spicy and sweet go really well. I already know, sweet and salty go well. So let me do like peanut butter's kind of sweet, but it's also salty. And I was like, let's put those together. Amazing. And what was it? Peanut butter jelly and Cheerios? That's
peanut butter jelly, bananas with Cheerios.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's just a crazy idea. I don't do that anymore.
Yeah, those are
that's so funny.
Yeah, like the peanut butter and hot sauce. I mean, I can understand like the two, differences in flavor, like salty, hot, and stuff like that. And a lot of people mix like salty and sweet and stuff together. So I can get the concept, but it's still something like you're kind of just hesitant of like, I don't know.
It's good. This is not some weird thing. I really do think it's good. It's kind of like. I really can't think of anything that it's like, but it's good. I'm just gonna say that.
So get back on hitbox topic. So Combo Breaker 2019 was when Daigo was banned from using the hitbox controller during his runs in tournaments. But during that same year at Evo, you know, they came out and said that they allowed it. So were you guys dealing with? I'm trying to get my history here. Were you guys dealing with like a lot of bans from like other tournaments and stuff during that time? Because you know you hear about Combo Breaker, you know it's one of the biggest FGC tournaments we have. But you know with people having that mindset of like your controllers back then, like did you deal with a lot more bans in a lot of places where you guys really fighting for inclusion within the FGC?
Um, to be honest, no. And to clear it up a little bit too, is the controller that was banned at Combo Breaker that Daigo was using was a modded controller from a Japanese player named Gaffro, and the term for the controller was a Gaffro box. Um, it kind of has a hitbox sort of layout to it. It splits it up and it adds a bunch of directional buttons, and it doesn't have the same SOCD sort of stuff going on. From what I remember, basically Daigo showed up with the controller, and don't quote me on this. This is sort of the general idea of it, but I believe a Capcom representative or whatever saw it, or some people running the event saw it, and went to Rick Hado, and sort of asked him to, ban it or whatever for the event. Obviously started huge conversations within the FGC regarding that, and yeah, that was a big thing because part of it is, we're trying to maintain our brand here, Hitbox, and when people make something that's all button and call it a hitbox, but it's not, it does completely different things or has extra buttons, it makes it very difficult to continue the conversation from our side. So that was it was kind of rough that weekend, but luckily we had our guys on the floor at Combo Breaker, and that's where you see the picture of Daigo with the hitbox in his hand, because basically he got banned for getting used to all button controllers, and we just handed him a hitbox. I don't think he played with it that weekend, but at CEO, the next CEO, that's what he was playing on. But yeah, dealing with bans and stuff was interesting because, as you know, Cross Up was announced later that summer, and Capcom Pro Tour made a rule set regarding controllers right after, I think it was right after CEO, but in response to what happened at Combo Breaker. And some of the things in the rule set were like, wait a second, this is going to make the cross up a little bit difficult to sort of sell to people if this is going to be the standard. But we didn't really run into anything. We had, obviously CEO was that time. I don't think we ran into any events that wanted to ban us. The next major one was Evo, obviously. And yeah, they knew about the cross up announcement because we were going to advertise it at the event, and they had questions for us, and that definitely led to them sort of making that statement on what controllers would be allowed in the future. And I believe, oddly enough, they not only ensured that Hitbox would be legal, they said that Smashbox would. No other all-button Smash controllers were because of their additional inputs and stuff. Cross-up would be legal, and even Gaffro Box would be legal because of the rule set that they had. It was definitely stressful because you never, with our experience with Smashbox, you never know how far it will go or what people will say to sort of, if they have anything against Hitbox, they can. And like you're saying, there's a bunch of people out there that are just never tried it, just looked at it and have complete ignorance of it, and will say the wrong things. And the Twitter is free; anybody can post on it. So somebody can say something wrong, and 250 people now know the wrong thing about something. That's just the nature of it all. But it was stressful because there was the potential for that. But I think very quickly, I think CEO, I don't know if CEO really made a statement outright, but they didn't ban us, so we didn't really run into anything right away. Um, and oddly enough, I think we had our wooden version hitbox, our special edition. We went on sale right after Combo Breaker, so it's like even if we had all that hate or whatever of us being banned, our community loved us, and because we were doing that, so it was interesting, especially going to Evo with Crossup, because we had at CEO we had a prototype Crossup that we were testing with the hitbox players there in the hotel room. We had them all sign NDAs and everything, like, hey, this is something we're working on. Yeah, it was stressful because of that mostly, but with hitbox specifically, I think we were fine. It was just sort of trying to sift out people's understanding of what a hitbox traditionally is versus somebody calling an all button controller a hitbox.
Yeah, I think that the all button controller name needs to be really like pushed, because everybody just calls like anything with all buttons a hitbox. It seems.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen people show up with like all button controllers made out of like Tupperware, and people
Yeah,
be like, oh,
yeah.
so you playing hitbox?
Yeah.
So, but speaking of the cross up, my next question is like, how long had that been in the works? Because was it originally that you guys wanted to keep making nothing but all button controllers, and then later you just had the idea of just like, what, I have an idea for this cross up, so let's like try to do this? Or was it something that you guys kind of like knew that you might get into? It wasn't anything like, hey, we're gonna stay with all buttons, and then somebody had to come and convince Hitbox like to come and make the cross up. So how did the cross up come about? Because if somebody was to just look at it, for face value, they'd be like, oh, so they must kind of be shifting away from just making all button controllers.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good question. Like I mentioned, back in the day when they were creating their first hitbox, it was the intention to improve the stick. And Dustin and Sean were stick players, and their intention at first was to improve the stick, and that's exactly what the cross-up is trying to do. They learned. I think the hitbox is an improvement on the stick too. I think it's potentially a better improvement. But what they learned with the hitbox and Smashbox, they applied to stick players specifically. Hitbox realizes that even if the hitbox is the best controller in the world, and most people think it's the best controller in the world, not everybody's going to play on it. And so instead of necessarily trying to convince everybody of that and to buy a hitbox or to play on a hitbox, it's getting the idea being getting stick players on this as close to the same playing field as possible, and that came to fruition sort of through dealing with the Smashbox and how you take a pad basically and everything it can do into a arcade controller. And so there's a lot of ideas in the Smashbox that went into the cross-up because of that, button remapping is part of it. But really, and I think it's still on some of our website and everything, but in our videos when we're announcing, the idea was to sort of, bring the stick into the new era and sort of hybrid the stick with the pad and put it on the same level. It's not necessarily we're getting away from all buttons per se. Obviously all buttons is our thing, but like I mentioned earlier, it's more about innovation and precision than it is about sticking with one specific idea. And that's to say, just because we've done a stick, like we've done something with a stick that nobody's done. And how long have arcade sticks been around?
A while.
For a long while, yeah. And even in the FGC, you can basically start with the Street Fighter 4s when really the stick boom started happening. So in 12 years, at 10 years of the time of the announcement of Cross-Up, there really hadn't been huge improvements to the stick. I think something like golden lever, the Korean levers are probably like the best example of improvements when it comes to the stick. Um, but yeah, it. I kind of lost my train of thought here, but the 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 cross up is an intentional innovation to the stick that is more that works for the palate of stick players. For all those people that are all button haters, for example, they want the feel of the stick, and I don't blame them. I'm used to playing in arcades too. I like the feeling of stick for specific games. I just don't like it for fighting games, for example. So yeah, it's not a we're getting away from all buttons. It's innovation and trying to get the obviously larger part of the community to understand that innovation can happen in many regards.
That's what's up, man. Because I'm excited for like when a lot of people get their hands on the stuff like that, and the stuff you're gonna be able to see coming that people do with like these 3D games, man. Like the tech that you're gonna see is probably gonna be amazing.
Yeah, no, it's right now these past couple weeks, Dustin has been grinding at Tekken to sort of get updated tutorial videos out for everybody. So hopefully that sort of gets people going on what the cross up can really do.
Okay, so I got two personals for you.
Okay.
Back to back. So you attended Oregon State, correct? And majored in philosophy.
Uh, no, I did not attend Oregon State. I intended to. My roommate attended Oregon State. I went to Lynn Benton Community College in Oregon.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Tough story to talk about because that wasn't the best time in my life. But basically, I had a grant that I was supposed to use, and I scheduled my classes wrong, and so I had to change classes. And by doing that, I sort of broke the restrictions of my grant, and therefore I wasn't getting any money for college, and therefore had to drop out of college. So the whole reason why I went to Oregon was to go to college, and I couldn't do it. The intention was to go to Oregon State, yeah. But yeah, that's funny. I still am a philosophy major. I've been picking away at that degree. Right now, I'm going to the local college here and plan on going to UNLV next year to continue my philosophy degree.
Okay. So I got one wrong. So, but you're into philosophy. So, you also like, are you still into like meditation and reading? Like, do you still do those things pretty often?
Not as often as I used to, but I still retain the benefits from all the meditation I was doing. I did a lot more mindfulness meditation back then. Anything I do now is, I forgot the exact terms for it, but I do a lot of like forgiveness and compassion meditation now. So to sort of inform people that are going to be watching this is, they're, for me, I this is getting pretty personal. This is awesome. This is awesome. I have difficulty with guilt. That is an emotion I have a difficult time sort of getting through and dealing with. And what I've been doing recently is forgiveness meditations, where basically it's sort of kind of getting myself in the space to understand what forgiveness feels like from somebody else, and in scenarios that I have, forgiven somebody, and then taking whatever I feel guilty about now and trying to forgive myself, forgive others. That's something I've been doing a lot recently. And then sort of loving kindness. That's the meditation, where it's you take what you do is you understand, you sort of get in the feeling of who you love the most. You try to really feel that feeling, and you try to project it onto other people in your life, and you kind of build that out, and then you build it out to the community in general, the world in general. It depends on how far you want to go. And then on the other end, just like the forgiveness, you forgive somebody, you have to be able to accept forgiveness from somebody else. You also try to feel the love that somebody feels for you, and then you keep projecting that onto yourself, and it helps you feel a lot better about sort of accepting yourself, accepting others, and doing good things for people. That's where my meditation is sort of has put me now. I still have plenty of like insights from the mindfulness meditation I did back in the day. I still do that every now and then. I probably, once every 3 months or so. It used to be about twice a week. And as far as reading goes, not so much recently. I had two pretty difficult classes last semester, and full-time job with Hitbox kind of makes me not such a good reader as I was back in the day. But I guess if I could say anything, one of the best, most recent reads I've done was The Myth of Sisyphus. Great book. Kind of dense. It's from a French philosopher, and it's translated in English, so a lot of stuff feels weird. But there's a lot of great content in there.
Yeah, I asked because I do a lot of meditation myself. I don't necessarily know if I've ever put a label on it, what type of meditation it is, but the question I was getting to was like, do you find it difficult to, like, with us in this social media age, and you're a community manager, and all the things I do here at TVFGC, like the thing with meditation, you just find that you really have to break away from those things and really like separate yourself and get yourself to a spot to where it's like, okay, it's just me and this meditation that I'm trying to do. Like, do you find it hard to like find that balance of like making sure I meditate here and have myself correct, but at the same time be over here and making sure I keep my job going of community manager and stuff like that? Because it's really a task, and I'm a husband, father, and stuff like that too. So you add more things into it, and it's like you start feeling like, man, like I'm putting so much in here, but I'm not putting it into myself. Like eventually, it's gonna get to a point where I'm gonna have to make sure I can go and do this over here.
Yeah. No, that's quite frankly, that is one of the most difficult things I deal with daily. I have to be on social media for my job. It's not something like I'm bitter about at all. I actually do like interacting with people on social media and doing that sort of stuff. I love interacting with our community and Discord and everything. But yeah, you're right. There's an aspect that social media and that presence that you have to, in something like this, you have to learn how to separate them so they don't intertwine with each other. It's difficult, but the way I've done it currently, it may not look like it, but all my personal social media right now, I haven't been on all month, as a sort of way to sort of get through that. My business Twitter account, Hitbox Cameron, I still use daily, but only when I'm ever at work. And I'm basically, the only time I ever use my cell phone for anything dealing with the internet, it's to put on Netflix or watch a video on YouTube. Beyond that, that's how I'm currently doing the disconnect sort of thing. It is tough though, because there are some bad days where you're getting 20 emails, and they all need attention, and somebody's trying to start drama on social media, so you have to keep an eye on stuff and maybe have to make a post about it or whatever. I love my job, but I do have a distaste for social media in general. Simply not necessarily in itself. I think it can be a very empowering thing, but sort of how people learn to use it and how addictive it feels. And I think there's very few people that can say it's non-addictive. You go on there, it's bright colors, You get little notifications when somebody likes your thing. You can like other people's things and retweet and all that. And that's the more difficult part. That's where my distaste comes from. Is like it's trying to drag you into something that, for a lot of the time, is non-productive. And yeah, I've had to basically not do anything on my phone or internet for a whole day before, just to sort of get a reset. What are they called? A dopamine fast. I did a dopamine fast in 2019, I think, where it's basically try not to get, the only things that you're gonna do are things you do for yourself. So you can't even really read. You have to, if you're gonna do any sort of reading, it has to be your own personal writing. No video games, no computer, no television, stuff like that. And basically what I did was I took a walk. I took like a 5-hour walk, and in the middle of it, I sat at a park and I just sat in the shade and meditated. I laid down and just sort of relaxed and let myself get bored. I think that's a huge thing when it comes to social media these days and just living life these days, is finding ways to be bored. And you said you're a father and a husband. It's probably difficult to be bored in that sort of life, because it's super super busy. But I think you understand what I mean. Is like,
Yeah, I definitely do.
Not to do the things that are the instantly gratifying stuff.
Mm. Yeah, I definitely do. It's very tempting because I like conversation like this. As you can tell, the kind of questions I come up with. Like, I like conversation. I really like dialogue and in depth. Like, hey, let's break this down into layers and really get into this. So, when I was in college, I took philosophy, ethics, logic. I took all that stuff because that's just the type of thinking I like doing. So, it's real hard not to want to dive into that and make that the rest of the interview.
Same.
I guess we can talk about that more later on, like when the interview's done. But how much more time do I have left with you? I think
we could do like 15 more minutes.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
So, my next question is: so you really like music? Like you're really, really like into music? So I'm gonna throw out like some bands and stuff like that. You tell me if any of them. So
okay.
I think it's Arcade Fire.
Love them.
How do you pronounce it? Sigur? Is it Sigur? Sigurios?
It's how I say it is Sigur Rós, but I believe it's Sigur Rós.
Oh, okay.
It's Icelandic.
See, I slaughtered that. And also like Daft Punk. I think one of your albums you like the most is the Tron Legacy soundtrack.
I do love the Tron's Legacy soundtrack, but my favorite album of theirs is actually their Alive 2007. It's basically all of their music that they've done up to that point in a live set. It's like an hour and a half long, and it's awesome.
Yeah, I think music is something that's really a part of like every single person's life. Like somebody you like music in some way, shape, or form. And Daft Punk, I think I probably discovered them before this, but really didn't know who they were. But I think Face to Face was off the Discovery album.
Yes.
And that's like when I first learned about them. I used to play that song like just all day. And where I'm from, like a lot of people didn't listen to stuff like Daft Punk. So people, when you come by, people it's just what are you listening to? What is that? And I'm just like, hey man, it just the type of music that makes you feel good, like make you. I kind of like. Compared to like anime music, like anime opening themes and stuff like that, they just make you feel good to be alive,
Yeah.
So, but we can go on to the next question. So,
well, I do have something to add there.
Okay.
I felt similar. Like I said, I grew up in northern Idaho, small town. A lot of country music. Nothing against country music. And part of it was also like the alternative rock, which I liked, but there was really nothing beyond that. There's like the art culture, the music scene it's basically non-existent, and so a lot of the music I got into was through people online, and I had friends in Idaho that were music junkies or audiophiles like myself, far and few in between, right? And I understand your sentiment there, where like what are you listening to right now? It's like, oh, it's this band from Iceland that sings in literal gibberish. It's awesome. And they're like, why would you do that? It's like, because it makes me feel good. It's different, you know.
Yeah. I mean, you know, when people just get so used to doing their thing one way, I mean, it's like it's almost kind of like you're trying to divide a culture. Like you come in and, you know, cultures that have certain behavior patterns, ideologies, you know, where they do things, and then you come in and you're just different, and to them it feels like a disturbance of just like, why are you not flowing with everyone else?
Yeah.
You know, so definitely when it comes to music, people are just kind of like, what are you doing? Like, well, like, listen to this. Like, this is what you need to be listening to. So, I saw a tweet that you personally on your Hitbox Soar page tweeted, and I feel like this is like something that a lot of content creators can learn from. But one thing you said was Hitbox doesn't do hard release dates on products to avoid things like crunch time. Um, was that like a philosophy you guys had in the beginning, or was that something that you found over time? When a situation or something came up, because that's something that can really help relieve pressure off people, like, you know, content creators. You just say, hey, this is going to be out next Friday, and then next thing you know, life happens, and then you just feel like, oh man, I got to pressure myself to get this out because I told them and all that stuff. So like, speak about that ideology with Hitbox.
Yeah, so what I really love about Sean and Dustin, the co-owners of Hitbox, is that sort of like, you know, innovation is one thing, but they've always been focused on the people when it comes to Hitbox, inside Hitbox. For example, we had a conversation the other day, you know, we had a development meeting, for example, and there were things we were talking about, and Dustin wanted to include our customer service person, who typically doesn't want to provide any input when it comes to development stuff. He thinks it's beyond his expertise. But Dustin right away is like, okay, we need to get his input though, because whatever we implement, he has to deal with from the customer service side. So that sort of expands throughout the whole of Hitbox. And so when it comes to like those crunch times and everything, that's just something that they've just naturally done. They realized that, you know, back in the day when they were making them all by hand, they couldn't keep up with time frames or roadmaps like that. And so it was more about, you know, first come, first serve. If you want one, you'll get in line, and we'll do it as we go at our pace. We're not going to, you know, overwork ourselves to an incredible degree. You know, Sean and Dustin have overworked, and they still do, but they don't want to do that to everybody, and they don't want to do it, you know, where they are completely burnt out. So yeah, and I related that, I think, to maybe Cyberpunk 2077 when I made that tweet. I can't remember exactly, but yeah, the idea is we don't want to. We have to deal with so many different aspects at Hitbox. It's, you know, reacting to it. Basically, you have game releases and tournament events, and we don't know when those are going to be announced, and a lot of times we don't know when they're going to happen, and so it's having to react to all of those and the demand that comes with all of that. So, for example, yes, we knew that Strive was coming out at this day, you know, with June 10th, June 11th. But we did not know that we would be selling as much as we were prior to that, to not be caught up on our stock. We had set it up so we would be stocked for the release and the beta. We set it up so for beta and release. But it's just, we sold out so fast that we can only produce so fast, but we sold out way faster than we expected. There's no way we're going to say, hey, between restocks, it's going to be a month. There's no way we want to say that because we don't want to push everything that far ahead of the line.
Yeah, that's understandable because, no matter what you're running, what you're doing, this thing we call life has all types of twists and turns, and you never know what's going to happen. So, not just, when you set dates on stuff, you kind of like, okay, I've tied myself. I'm constricted now. Like, so if as life changes, with these confines on me, I'm not able to be as fluid as life is, So next thing you know, you make things hard on yourself. So, but another question I have, we've been seeing that Hitbox has been signing a lot of people lately. So when it for people who might be interested, a question I have is, what is Hitbox looking for? When it comes to like signing players and things like that. Like, is there advice you can give for somebody who's looking to be signed? Anybody that specifically wants to be signed to Hitbox? What is it that you guys are looking for?
We're looking for people we like. We have to get along with them. That's been a huge thing for us, and because it might look a little weird to people on the outside seeing Hitbox sponsor no top players, right? Partly because our other stipulation is you have to be playing on a Hitbox. If you're not playing on a Hitbox, we're not going to go out of our way to sponsor you because we know some people don't like the Hitbox. We're not going to put ourselves into a 1 or 2 year contract for a top player who's just going to play on stick or wants to play on stick, right? So you have to be playing a Hitbox, but we have to like you. And that's where all these announcements are coming from, are people that we like. We can choose there's many people out there that we can choose from. But, for example, we just announced Densetsu yesterday. It would be June 16th. We love that guy. He's helped out at our booth a couple times. We love his chill attitude. We love how he streams. That's just how it is. It sounds super simple, or maybe really complicated for some people to get to that point. But we're a people company, like I was saying earlier. Like, Sean and Dustin are very focused on the people that they surround themselves with, and if they don't like somebody, there's very few people that they dislike, if any. But if they're not truly enthralled with somebody to be a Hitbox player, it's very difficult to convince them, like, hey, we should sponsor this person or whatever. Beyond that, like, if I have any advice for people that are looking for sponsorships in general, or specifically with Hitbox, use the brand. Use the brand. Not necessarily talk about the brand. Interact with the community that uses that brand. And I'm saying that in more general, but with Hitbox, if you want to be sponsored by Hitbox, use their stuff. Interact with their community. Make content for whatever brand you're interacting with, and be positive. I say that, but there are definitely drama makers in the community that kind of make it easier to get sponsorship because there's so much attention on them. But in the long run, if everybody's trying to be positive and trying to empower each other in the community, I think that's far more important and something that we would rather incentivize and reward in the long run.
It's funny when you said we're a people company. The first thing that came to my mind was the Office, the Dunder Mifflin theme song, the people, persons, paper, people.
Yeah.
But I'm glad you're being honest. Like, you don't want to sign anybody, especially when you're like, we're here for the community. You can tell you're not a company that's too much like we're just in it for the money. A lot of people really, they put up with certain people they don't like because money follows. But it's honest, So yeah. You don't want to be the person that gets into the company and then you figure out it's something different. You're like, man, you wasn't up front with me, so it's good to just be up front at first. So with the last 3 to 5 minutes, I think that I have,
Okay.
we'll just run off like some personal questions for you. So
I'll try to make it quick.
so Robert Downey Jr. and Heath Ledger are two of your favorite actors. Like you really like those actors.
Yeah, I do. That's funny. Yeah, they. Robert Downey Jr. is hilarious, and he has a lot of range. Heath Ledger, rest in peace. That's been a long time now, huh? About 13 years.
Has it been that long?
It has. He
Oh,
died in
okay.
early 2008.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's been that long.
Yeah, it's showing our age a little bit maybe.
Yeah.
But what he did in The Dark Knight was absolutely amazing. Um, and I still think to this day is one of the best performances you can give for a villain or any sort of comic book character. There's a lot of great acting performances out there, but specifically in that regard. Um, and it's funny too because I really like the movie 10 Things I Hate About You, which is like a high school rom-com sort of thing. But he's incredibly charismatic in that too. He's supposed to be the heartthrob in the movie, and he does that well. But then, years later he does Joker, and he's doing Brokeback Mountain too. It's like this guy is just he incredible at his
Range.
craft, and yeah, range for sure.
So you got company coming over, and there's one meal that you know you can cook that you're gonna kill it every time. For you, is that deep dish pizza?
Uh ah,
Or
I
would
don't
it be
know.
a nice pie? Because you really like pies, don't you?
I absolutely love pie. I will. I if it's not a birthday cake, it's birthday pie, and I've been telling my girlfriend Rebecca, we're not having cake. If we have a wedding, we're having pie. Um, and by the way, it's pumpkin pie, which is my favorite. I think it's a really good all around. I love apple pie, marionberry pie. The best pie I've had ever was a peach pear pie. Um, yeah, I love pie. My go-to, if people are coming over and I really want to astound them, uh, man, I haven't cooked for a lot of people in a while. This past year and a half. I make a pretty mean vegan lasagna.
Mm.
I think that's probably the thing I would do. Yeah.
You know, my favorite pie is pecan pie, and it's sad to say the only deep dish pizza I've ever had was Little Caesar, so I need to step my game up.
Well, I mean, I'm vegan, and so it's very difficult to find true vegan pizza. So, um, yeah, I really want to go to Combo Breaker next year, and there's a vegan pizza place I've had on my bookmarks on my web browser ever since I think this was early 2019. It's like once I go to Combo Breaker, I'm going to Chicago. I'm getting a real vegan deep dish pizza.
So Metroid is a series that you really love.
Yes.
I heard
Yes.
at one time you said you wanted BioWare to make a Metroid game. Do you remember saying that?
Yes, I remember saying that, and I remember thinking it 2 days ago when they announced Metroid Dread, because I absolutely love Metroid, and because my idea of Metroid for myself is I'm a big Alien fan, the movie Alien, which inspired the Metroid series quite a bit, and female leads, scary creatures, that sort of stuff. And I always saw the original Metroid and Super Metroid as well as almost like horror games. And I thought it would be super cool because I'm a huge fan of Mass Effect too. I thought it would be super cool if Mass Effect made not a team-based. I think I said team-based back then, but I think about it now. Not a team-based version, but a very story-driven sort of horror game would be really, really cool. I think my opinion has changed a little bit on who would potentially be behind that. I think From Software would be the best team to do something that's more scary, that's more atmospheric like that than BioWare at this point. But I will say I am super excited for Metroid Dread. I loved Metroid Fusion back in the day, and now they're finally continuing the story. This is gonna be the latest, the latest addition to the Metroid timeline. I'm super stoked, and to go off a little bit more on that, it's exciting because Samus is supposed to have Metroid and Parasite X DNA in her body now, so she is now the monster, right? And the robots we see in Dread are probably seeing her as that. So that's how I'm reading into it. It's called Dread because maybe I don't want to read too much into it, but it looks I'm super excited.
But definitely hold us over until that hopeful Metroid 4.
Oh, so yeah.
So do you still think Halo is one of the best game series ever?
How do I answer this? I don't think so. Not so much anymore, but I absolutely love Halo. That was my context for the viewers here. That was the game that really got me into competitive gaming. I played in Madden tournaments and stuff with high school people back in the day. I ran those were my first events I ever ran, were Madden tournaments. And then I got into Halo 1 for a little bit right before Halo 2 and really got into that. Played some local tournaments in Washington for that. And then Halo 3 came out, and I had a team I played with on GameBattles.net. If anybody remembers that was MLG's sort of online tournament system. I'm a huge nerd for the Halo story, though. I will say that is the one aspect I like. As far as like how good the one-player mode actually is, that's debatable, but I love the story behind it. I'm a huge sci-fi buff, and I even bought the Forerunner saga, which is like the story of the people before all of the Halo things happened. So yeah, great story. I think it's a phenomenal story, and they really should make a movie about it.
Man, I know, like, for me, I know people used to always talk about, like, how people were like, oh, these kids, they get addicted to gaming and stuff like that. I truly didn't see what people was talking about until, like, Halo and Call of Duty started coming out. Like, when those games came out, it was literally, like, school, college, Halo, Call of Duty, and people was just like, Halo, Call of Duty every time. Like, it was literally, like, like a problem. People was just literally having to fight to put this game down. Like, it was Call of Duty for me because we didn't have like Xbox, but man, when Black Ops was coming out, Modern Warfare 2, man, it was some hard stuff. Like to choose responsibilities, like it was really hard.
No, I remember I was going to college and I got to class early, so I was sitting outside of the classroom in the sort of lounge area. I sat down and took out my notebook. Instead of doing notes for class, I was doing team tactics notes for Halo 3 to figure out how to sort of infiltrate the flag area. I did that for so long, I missed the whole class. So I was definitely one of those people back in the day.
So last question, you did a skit called When's Breakfast. What was the idea for that skit? Like, how did that happen?
The idea behind it was I was late to the Vine era. Basically, I got into Vine when it was dying out and everybody was uploading it to YouTube. And I just thought a lot of the things people were doing were incredibly hilarious and creative. And one day I was living with my family at the time. One day they were out on a trip or something. I was like, you know what? I have the whole house to myself. I can do a family thing. How do I do a family skit that's really quick? And that's where it came up. I wouldn't consider myself a like somebody that could do stand-up comedy, but I love like being weird and strange and being in character and stuff. One of my favorite actors is Jim Carrey. He's just so animated, and he just was a huge influence on me on like how to be funny, like all the physical humor and stuff, and the characters he would do.
Yeah. Funny story. I actually had a Vine account. I got into like the hustle of Vine, so I had a personal account and I had a page that was like a retweet account. So basically, you retweet a lot of people's stuff. I got a Vine account to 50,000 followers.
Dang, dude.
Like I got it to 50,000 followers. And I was basically in a network of people of just like, hey, when I post at this time, y'all repost my stuff, we'll repost your stuff. We was networking, we was working.
Yeah.
So, you know, at this time I was like magnificently ignorant, like I look back on it and you know, you have to laugh to not get mad at yourself for being so ignorant. But a guy reached out to me one day, random out the blue, didn't know him from Adam, and was just like, hey man, I have a 90,000 follower account, but it's really kind of like dead for me, man. Like it's really not doing nothing for me anymore. I want to trade with you for your 50,000 account, and I'll give you my 90,000 account. Automatically off the rip, anybody with some sense would just be like, "That's dumb. Like, why would he give you 90,000 in exchange for 50,000?"
Yeah.
But he was just saying, "It's the activity. It's the activity. I just don't feel like making it come back alive." So I was like, shoot, I could do it, 90,000 and all that other stuff. He was like, yeah, all you have to do is send me your password and stuff first, and then I'll send you mine. I sent it to him, and within like 5 seconds, he got into my account, changed everything, took my whole account away from me. 50,000 followers was gone. So I was like hurt for like a good week, but then after a while, life goes on. So, you know, I lost my chance to probably, you know, be like internet famous because just dumb, you know.
Yeah.
But, you know, back in those times, you know, the tricks and the trades of how people would, it was always evolving. So I never knew, you know, nobody ever told you how to watch out for this or that. So,
yeah.
But my radar, my spidey senses didn't go off. But, but thank you for, you know, joining us once again. We appreciate your time. You know, we appreciate the conversation, especially the personal questions. You know, we really like to switch it up, you know, just from the things that, you know, you kind of expect and stuff like that. So any last words you'd like to say?
I would really love to talk philosophy and meditation and stuff with you whenever we have any free time. But, you know, to you and the viewers, you know, stay positive out there, stay compassionate, empower your community, and just stay awesome.
All right. And so your Twitter name is Twitter. I don't know what I just said. Your Twitter name is right there. People can see it on the screen. Hitbox Cameron. Make sure to go follow him on Twitter. Make sure you check out the things they got going at Hitbox. And thank you guys for your time.